It is January 2nd. What have you done today?
I was sick all week.
You were.
I did,
I learned the vibe code, and I built an app.
see, this is, you're like tearing me to build yourself up today. I did have a slightly more productive day. I'm trying to plan a weekend trip for my mother-in-law who's coming down. And also worked on CMS access some, and then had a client call. So I did actually have like a fairly reasonable morning, but
Good.
yeah,
What
and
do
I
you have,
stopped sneezing. This is a
you have
big deal.
January all planned out, and you're not going to go to, 2026 is the year it all changes.
It is. Okay. I am going to say 2026 is going to be a big year. So we're done pre-gaming now, correct? Like we're gonna do this because it is now 11 a.m. Eastern. We are live on both platforms. I don't know if I will ever be able to pull this off again, but maybe 2026 is the year of tech success.
It is. AI will just make things happen for you in the background.
Yes, they will. They will.
Well, you're in charge. Lead us.
I'm in charge. So let's start. We've already done a little bit of rambling. We always tend to add a little bit of rambling into places, so I don't deny. I titled this Predictions, Resolutions, and Ramblings.
Okay. And then you can see people ask questions, and
I can.
It's the way you set this up, I can't. But
on both platforms.
Good.
Yes, I'm a
we
little.
Plan on doing this for 45 minutes, an hour, or until everybody gets bored and leaves.
Yes, that is correct. Okay. Oh, we have somebody from the Philippines here.
Good.
Yeah, that's
probably can teach us a lot about health. My understanding is they do a good job on healthcare. Where people live a long time.
I will also say that they get the award for being the farthest, I think, in distance. I don't know if somebody else is on here that can trump the Philippines. Please let us know.
I don't think we have the Philippines on our Substack, so if you're from the Philippines, please subscribe to
because this person is joining us from LinkedIn Live from the Philippines. So if you are not familiar, so I will say this to Nicole. foodishealth.substack.com. You can do the free subscription. You will be our first Philippine member, Substack member. You will broaden our global reach. Either,
but I don't think we need anybody from Russia.
Yeah. Anyways.
Okay,
so we want to start. I will say this, ground rules for anybody that's on. Feel free to submit questions, comments, your own predictions, your own resolutions. We will add you into this conversation virtually. So this is meant to be an interactive session. We decided that anybody who's back at it today is probably in need of a bit of a distraction. And so we're here for you. So
unless you're live coding, in which you can do it at the same time.
Well, yes, exactly. You can do it all. So let's start with predictions. We'll do multiples, but let's start. You start. What is one prediction you have for 2026?
I think at the end of 2026, we will look back and the boomers will say Gen Z changed the equation. They made their desires known that healthcare had to change, and it will have either changed some or a lot. I think we will be below. The boomers will look back and see peculiar upsets in the election that they can't quite understand.
Wait. Pause. Do one at a time. I want to unpack the first one. I know they're related, but I want to go back to this Gen Z thing. So how do you think that Gen Z as a generation has enough spending power or influence that they can flip the script on healthcare?
Well, let me boundary this a little bit more. So under 40, pre-chronic. And then Gen Z. And I think that community has done some interesting things recently in our politics and social norms. they use TikTok and things very effectively to communicate. I think one of the noticeable things is there's this huge disruption around Minnesota daycare that really is a byproduct of some young people, right or wrong, who've generated a concern around fraud that's gotten like more than 100 million people paying attention to it. You know, on a good day, 60 Minutes gets 8 million people. So I interpret that as younger people have a way to reach out to people and influence them. I think the election in New York is normally young people don't vote, and they did. And that's another sign that people just don't like the status quo. They're not necessarily sure what they want to buy into. But they don't like the status quo, and so they're gonna move away from the status quo. I think we're seeing in the healthcare data that younger group is not buying insurance, whether it's Gen Z or older, up into the 40s. That if they're healthy, if they're taking care of it, their attitude is Mark Hyman's my doctor. I'm using him's hers. They're starting to solve the problem without the help of anybody in Washington, without the help of subsidies. They have this sort of self-determination there, and then they understand how to use the tool sets, AI and such, you know, where we look at it and we say, well, AI is giving you the wrong answers, you shouldn't listen to it. Their attitude is, I understand where AI is not giving me the right answers. I'm pre-programmed. My brain's already coded to understand confusion and uncertainty. And I can figure out enough to live. And so I think they've got a different mindset. I think they've got a different attitude. I think they've got a different predisposition as to whether they're going to accept. You know, when people talk about universal healthcare, I don't even think that, I'm not sure what they would do with that. So I think that crowd represents what they will
the most
do.
Disruptive, do you think? So how I read that is
They're predictable. Hold on, let me just one last point on this. Sorry, they're predictable. They're going to do what's necessary to stay alive in an affordable, manageable way. So they're not disruptive in randomness, but they have an objective in mind, and they're going to do it in a way that you and I or people over 50 wouldn't. And we won't understand it. It'll look noisy to us, and to them it looks normal. Sorry.
so I hear you, but I think it will feel disruptive, to your point.
Depending on who you are.
They will sort of come out of left field in that they have a very different approach to getting what they want and what they believe they need than other generations.
Yes. And they will have a spillover effect. They're affecting me. So I ended one, but they will have a spillover effect. And the trick in behavior change overall is, if you're part of a family, then you pay attention to what your grandparents do, your parents, your children. And so there's also an opportunity within the family unit to where it's strong.
Well, I think so. If we talk about the family unit for a second, and I don't want to go too far afield on this because now we're on the rambling territory, but I want to unpack this some. But when we talk about your point, for anybody that's joining, of a prediction that Gen Z, the pre-chronic Gen Z, can really, they're likely to really mix things up this year and be sort of force multiplier. I think what I find interesting with Gen Z is when you talk about the family unit, in some ways, I think the typical matriarch patriarch structure is turned upside down when you put Gen Z into the mix, because I feel like there is this acknowledgement within a multi-generational environment that Gen Z might actually know more than the elders because of the their consumption of information on a broader set. And I think AI would be a bolstering of that. Right? Like,
So I want to get it out of a nuclear family thing and just talk about innovation. So innovation occurs when you have a referenceable early adopter. Referenceable means they're an early adopter of new technology, and you listen to them.
Yes.
And you listen to them. And I personally find I'd heard about vibe coding. I was thinking about it. I was trying to understand it. I called my token 20-year-old that I know. I said, "Look, I don't get this. Can you explain it to me?" Explained it to me. I was up and running within a day.
It's not a token 20-year-old. You're making that person sound like they're some sort of like guy that you met on the street.
He's not an NPC. I'm sorry. He's a smart 20-year-old who's very
Thank you.
Like, on it. I'm sorry. Like, but from outside, people are like, oh, he's just a 20-year-old.
All right, fair enough. I just needed to frame it from everyone properly.
My point is that if you get over, and I think all of us can do this, is they're referenceable. They're doing stuff. It doesn't exactly make sense. And then they, I think, appreciate the wisdom. So there's really nothing that can compete against, 50 plus and a Gen Zer and just sort of skip the middle maybe a little bit. Like if they start thinking, you sort of bring wisdom and new tool sets together, and in our Tom Sawyer kind of way, a few people leading the band. Can set a cadence, and then you throw TikTok and you throw other ways of communicating around, and all of a sudden you don't need to be king, and you don't need to be the government, you don't need to be an institution to alter people's thinking.
I have to say hi to Price, my boy Price. Somehow he handled an Uber ride with me when I was all fired up one particular day in DC, and he still hung around, and he's here. And you're getting a little bit of a compliment from the peanut gallery of that you've obviously spent some time with the younger generations.
I actually try to spend more time with the other generations.
Yes. So I know you do. So I had to throw that one out there. And hi to everybody that's there. So, yeah, using a term like NPC is impressive. So just giving you props. You deserve props. Last time you got a little bit of abuse from the commentary, so I had to piece. Okay, good question though. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the Gen Z thing, because I actually a similar question. Price sort of stole my thunder a little bit, but I was going to add it on a broader piece. So Price, I will answer the function thing. So we absolutely believe that actually all three. So Price just said, what tools do you think Gen Z will be leaning on? And then he said function ? Aura ? Or just ChatGPT ? So I'm going to say all three, particularly function and ChatGPT. And I would say in conjunction with each other. I know, Price, you've seen this from your buddy, Brendan, and then also from our friend Graham. There is a tremendous uptick of, particularly in Gen Z, of taking whatever information they get. So whether they're subscriber to function, whether they're using hims and hers, whether they're just going to a telehealth visit, whether they're just Google Docking, they're putting all that information in. And Carter did a very impressive example of this much earlier in the year, where he took his function health data, put it into ChatGPT, and came up with a whole protocol. And I think he did that again. But that, I think, is what, and bottom line, it's DIY healthcare. And it's just getting better and better for anybody who's willing to use it in general. And I know it's wrought. Like, there's been a lot of controversy around this Prenuvo lawsuit. I don't know. We haven't talked about it, Carter, because I sort of fell off the face of the earth between vacation and then getting sick. There's a lot of fodder right now around this person that the Prenuvo scan didn't really pick it up the way that people thought they should have. And, it's this whole issue of early diagnostics.
Well, if you take the Prenuvo case, like, my immediate reaction to hearing the Prenuvo case was, How come they don't have an MCP, and how come I don't have the whole data set so I can go run it myself?
Yeah.
I mean, my reaction was not, if I put myself, I was watching a documentary on Cy Hirsch, and I remember as a kid when like Cy Hirsch would like push stuff out, I'd be like, oh, this guy is so full of shit. Like he'd make because that was back in the day, like in the '70s, Cy Hirsch would write stuff, and like in one moment it would be great, and the next moment he just screwed the pooch and had completely inaccurate data on his reporting. He sort of flipped back and forth. And so I had an attitude when I heard anything from Cy Hirsch that was searching more Hirsch. I was like, oh, the guy's full of shit. My attitude now is actually he was sort of interesting character, so it's my elder wisdom maybe. But the other thing is like I'd like to look at the data myself. I mean that's the other twist is like I'm not gonna like as a kid I was like whatever my family thinks this, my tribe thinks
Right.
this, but now like I don't know why I can't get access to the data. Like this whole thing up in Minnesota, I'm like, can I just go to Grok or ChatGPT and hook up into MCP and pull the data down myself and like look at it and validate it? And so I think the thing that Function Health and Oregon have to do is I, I, the customer. We invested $80 billion to fix ag tech without enough customer signal. I think the customer signal is coming on so strong at this point. We're going to be flipping our arrows, and True North is now going to go deep into who are the people on the customer side leading the way, because the iterations won't be I'm Function Health, I'm giving you more access to your blood tests.
Mm-mm.
It's I'm a human trying to solve for N of 1 DIY, and I
Exactly.
need more precise information. I really don't need so Function might go sit down and write a whole bunch of apps and features, and if they're not from that first customer data set that they say, well, we should write these apps and features. So the time that they release, those customers, I think, are going to be evolving. They're thinking 2 or 3 iterations faster than the code is being developed. And so I think Aura and Function could get wiped out.
Oh, I totally do. I don't think they've created anything. I mean, the same with superpower. I mean, we've used it all. There's nothing novel about it. Once you've done it, once you've used it. I mean, even my Aura, the only reason that I still use my Aura religiously is because it gives me such a good insight into my REM and my deep sleep, which most people will say, well, that doesn't matter. You know how you feel. I'm just one of those people. Like I that's why I'm sick right now. I spent 7 days in Europe. 6 of the 7 nights, I was in bed for 8+ hours and got maybe 6 hours sleep, got no deep sleep, got no REM sleep, between all the stuff that was going on. And I ended up getting sick. And I knew that was coming because I had that data. And I actually was very careful. Like I was changing my behavior as a result of it. And my point being, but Aura didn't tell me to do that. Aura didn't catch that. And then Aura also didn't know that I was eating like crap, right? I was eating sugar. We were going to the Christmas markets. I was drinking glue wine and eating sugar. And my
Blue wine.
it's like mulled wine. I
Well, like,
digress. But the point is, the pieces have not been put together. So there was nobody tracking my gut to say, Ellen, your sleep is off. You are not getting proper restoration. And your gut, right? If we talk about the immune system, which is the driver of health and inflammatory markers, all these things, right? If you break these pieces apart, but put them together, and nobody has put them together as of right now. I still have to go out as a DIY healthcare
yeah.
person and put the pieces together.
So
And
we're in a
that's
phase. We're in a phase. Let's go back to just classical theory. Classical theory is you have product innovation, you have process innovation. Product innovation is we're going to design cars, and we don't know whether they have 6 wheels, 4 wheels, 2 steering wheels, 1 steering wheel, diesel engine, electric engine. They're all these different things. They're all bouncing around. And if you go back to before Ford, there were like 1,000 companies. The Model T. Before the Model T, there were like 1,000 car companies. And they were all bouncing around, like trying to figure out what this thing would look like. I even have a picture. Our family actually had an electric car in like that time frame. So then there's a point in time in innovation called dominant design. And dominant design, somebody says, this sort of makes sense. And that's like, we're going to have a car, it's going to have 2 seats, it's going to have 4 wheels, it's going to have a crank on the front to start it, it's going to have a steering wheel on the left, not a rudder, whatever they did. So it's going to have a steering wheel and whatever, and it's going to be black. And you establish dominant design, and then once dominant design occurs, then people sort of say, okay, well, let's now lower the cost. So that's what Ford did, is once people sort of caught the wind as to what a car should look like.
This is
he
your point.
He figured out how to take it from 10x to x process innovation.
Which
we're still back in that. We're back in that predominant design thing, because in healthcare it was about increasing access to acute care, and then maybe adding chronic on top out of laziness. And on food, it was about cheap food at scale. Now our attitude is food is health, and we don't need insurance for chronic care. We need insurance for acute care.
Well, that's our attitude. That's the Ellen and Carter attitude, just to be clear. That's not the right attitude. Not. And you saw, I mean, okay, first of all, I want to go back to
a principle standpoint, it's the right attitude.
I understood, but that doesn't mean that the 3 major industries that we're talking about connecting the dots on have any clue what we're talking about. So
physics is law.
Okay. So Price made a point. He was talking about basically what you were saying, but he made the point of, if and when access to data becomes a commodity, then the value only lies in the products that extract value from the data. And that's another way of saying what you were just saying, which is the 10x to 1x. So right now,
I think say that again.
If and when access to data becomes a commodity, then the value only lies in the products that extract value from that data. And that's the issue, is that right now, the companies that give you the data don't give you any friggin' value with it.
Yeah, and then their design model around that is
they just throw you back into the traditional healthcare system. Here's a concierge doc.
Yeah, their viewpoint is still healthcare. Their viewpoint is healthcare.
So that's okay. Well, so let's stick with the prediction.
Feeding, like, Function Health is not telling my Kroger app
correct
anything. Like, in my Kroger experience, my watch,
your Garmin,
my Garmin should vibrate when I'm picking up.
I'm supposed to get my new Garmin today, by the way. I'm going to become Garmin. This sucker's coming off. Oh, although, you know me, I have another wrist. Okay. I might become dual wristed. I don't have big wrists, and I ordered a big Garmin. I got the big one because it's got to have a phone on it. I got the Phoenix. And my husband saw the credit card bill. He's like, Garmin USA? I was like, yep, I'm down. I've got to understand what's going on with Garmin over there. Andy Beckman. So let's go back to predictions. Okay. I want to stick with this. So we've thrown down one, and it is going to take, I'm going to keep threading the needle here. So we've thrown down one, which is your point about Gen Z. They're going to have a big impact on healthcare.
they're not going to cause a disruption. I
Correct.
don't know whether it'll be good or bad. I don't know. I'm not going to predict the outcome, but I think that at the end of the year,
We will look
the
back and see
look back and
they
we'll
made a
say,
difference.
I didn't expect that. And that Gen Z influence has had a disruptive behavior on what we decided this year.
Yep. Oh, wow. We have somebody from Algeria.
I don't think we have a subscriber from Algeria, so have them
No. So,
subscribe.
hi, Sala. If you're on LinkedIn, you're not on Substack over here, join us on Substack. You'll be our first Algerian subscriber. Foodishealth.substack.com. I didn't think I was going to be making a whatever a marketing ploy for subscribers, but what the heck. So let's all right. And Joe, thank you for your comment about New York and food is medicine. I actually I want to go back. I want to pause. I want to hold that food is medicine piece for a second. I want to stay at this broader level of market disruptions. And then I want to move a little bit. I will use the rural transformation funding program to kind of go into the predictions around food as medicine a little bit. So just anybody who's on here wondering if we're going to talk about food as medicine, I'm going to go there in a little bit. At least that's my plan. And again, if you've joined our calls before, I can't guarantee it. But let's stay here for a second on disruption. So the thing with healthcare is either happens to healthcare or healthcare makes it happen. And historically, it hasn't really happened to healthcare because they've managed to, I think, keep their arms around what we consider healthcare tight enough. But the reality is with AI and with all of the longevity space that are now providing all of these inputs outside of the traditional healthcare space, along with social media and all of the knowledge that influencers are putting out there, right or wrong, and direct to consumer, really, I think to your point, there's tremendous signal and latent demand of, I just want my own thing. There's also been, so I will predict that there is going to be more of a shift towards either becoming uninsured, those that are on exchange now. I don't know. Do we want to make a prediction around exchange? Do we think the enhanced subsidies are going to continue? Do we think we're going to kick that can down the road? Or do we think that the Republicans are going to stand firm? Do you want to make a prediction on that?
No, I'm not going to make a prediction on that. I think.
Okay. All right.
I just
fair
think,
enough.
but I do think this. I'm sorry. A sub note here is we're going to be below $100 for Ozempic for 26% weight loss. We are going to see a dramatic shift of people to go it alone,
Yes.
catastrophic. We're going to see some failures in that are sad. And I think that I think those are the things that are going to go on.
Can I build on that?
Yeah.
So you just bring up a good point. I think what we might, I agree with you on this. And I think maybe the case I'm building as you're talking in my mind on predictions is there are going to be a lot of pieces to what will cause the market to crumble. So like back in May, you wrote the 5 forces that would disrupt or dismantle healthcare, right?
Healthcare, yeah.
We've said now there's like 8. I think perhaps what I'm thinking now is that 2026 will be the year that whether it is the fatal blow or it is enough serious injury and sort of, dismemberment types of blows will happen enough in 2026 that either it's 2027 or 2028, it's going to happen really fast. I am convinced that when healthcare has to pivot, it's going to happen so fast they're not going to know what hit them.
Right.
And I think your point about GLP-1s, so follow me here. Somebody made a comment about System C and said our discussion so far is missing something we've discussed with System C before, which is the value to whom. We likely
Do
need
I?
to see those sad, catastrophic failures before systemic change can occur, right? Which I guess I didn't even see that comment before I just made the comment I did. I think what we're going to see is so many people are going to start taking GLP-1s because the prices come down, and healthcare is really, they're not filling the void on helping with GLP-1s, right? They're not seeing it as this big market opportunity. And to be quite frank, food is the one that should see it as a huge market opportunity, because food could totally own a new way of delivering healthcare with GLP-1s. We've talked about this before. So maybe, and I know we've talked about the fact that Lilly is looking at food. So maybe it's just that the pharmaceutical manufacturers just start to own food. They just go direct to consumer with the food too, and they just
Yeah.
disintermediate everybody.
I think what a bunch of things got to get recombobulated in here, and I think that corporations report to the street, street reports news. Corporations can do disruptive things up until the point that they can persuade the street that it's a worthwhile investment. So we have seen that some of the ingredients companies are investing in the microbiome and key things we all know technically need to be done, but when they talk to the street about it, the street gives them no credit for that. And so from an investment standpoint, we've got some peculiarities in that if you're a good leader running one of these organizations and you're doing the right thing for the future, it's not clear the market is going to give you credit for that because it's not showing up in revenue and won't show up in revenue or cash flow for some time.
Correct.
Now, someone like Musk can go around and talk about Tesla, and everybody's like, we buy your vision and we figure out what the cash flow is going to be. You can't really. Lilly is interesting in that they do get the cash flow, which is good. And so they can go out with a vision and the cash flow, but then there are other people in the system that need to go out with a vision but don't have the cash flow right now. And the challenge is that because we're talking about a shift in the market, if somebody's an innovator at the ingredient space, but you're really not going to see it until it gets pulled through CPGs, those people are going to have a tough ride. And the analysts that analyze that, the analyst doesn't do food and health. They do
Right.
like, I'm an expert in ingredients or I'm an expert in CPG. So that's going to cause a delay in people catching on, and it may be that there are strong leaders in there that sort of carry through the cash flow and the valuation. But we're still going through 2 or 3 years where it's going to be very difficult for incumbents to push their way out, which gives room for mid-sized companies, maybe the PE crowd and some of the startups, maybe gives them some room where they do come in strong on a vision. What we deployed $80 billion for ag tech on that vision without enough customer. If we get enough customer signals, so one thing I've been thinking about from an investment standpoint is, should we put all forces of early stage investment on human-based outcomes? Should we concentrate all of our investing at that level so that we understand if you eat shredded wheat with strawberries and blueberries in the morning with Fairlife, you can sort of get a hint of what I had this morning.
You're predictable, at least.
What's going to happen, and what are the going to be the outcomes? And does that mean audacious? Does it mean new generations of CGM? Does it mean Garmin? So we concentrate on that to get the human outcomes, and then if we monitor that from an investment standpoint and concentrate on that generationally for the next 2 or 3 years, we will see the signals buried in that area that then give us the guidance on what to do next and how to feed it in. How it impacts startups or growth stage companies or public companies, it's going to be really hard. But being on top of that information flow from an investment standpoint, if we want to speed this up, because we're making a lane change here in how technology works, we've got to reveal that information set faster so that the hordes of thousands of people who are thinking about these new things can react more quickly to what the new dominant design will be.
Said by somebody who spent the last week programming.
Yeah, so that sort of got me going the other day, and then I'm like, I'm just going to code this up because I can't explain it to anybody. So I've been spending 4 days coding, which I haven't coded in like a long time, but I've been spending 4 days coding something that we call Hayek. That's as in the Economist, and the app Claude is named after Claude Shannon. So Hayek and Shannon are the sort of fathers of entrepreneurial thinking and information theory. And so, anyway, I've been spending 4 days trying to write it up in code because it was easier to articulate in code than with humans. I've got an engineer's brain, I guess.
So I'm going to throw some comments in here. They all go back to this, and it takes me back. Okay, well, before I do the comments, let me say this. I think the key to speeding this up, this goes in a little bit into resolutions, predictions, and probably more resolutions, is I think use cases around human outcomes will speed things up.
Yeah.
So if we can bring, Kroger has their, what do they call it? Their nourish movement. And they're trying to bring healthcare in with food already. If we could get the right combo of the stream, of the thread. So if we could get the right ingredient, CPG, retail, and then outcomes of it, to your point, the measurement of it, the understanding of it, we can get enough of that in place in a measurable, quantifiable way with a feedback loop, then those use cases would be enormous.
Yeah, because they would energize Gen Z. Gen Z would be probably on the front load of this because they would incubate it and whatever with it to sort of accelerate it with it. They'd be self-excited.
So, I mean, so this is where I look at all of the things. So I think all of us can very easily, I know I very easily fall into this pattern of I'm either in the incumbent world of healthcare and food or I'm in the system C design state, right? It's this sort of like in and out, a little bit of
I just want to tell you, I'm sorry. When you're in healthcare, you need to change your attitude and think you're like in Ho Chi Minh City or something during the Vietnam War.
Okay, I am now.
You're like, I don't belong here, but I'm going to pretend I do.
I do feel that way, just for the record, which is why I have told you I don't know if I can muster the energy to go to JP Morgan this year. I'm seriously on the side of sitting this one out, particularly with the whole access program, which I don't think we'll have time to jump into today. But let's for a second, we have a really great cross section. I can see a lot of who's here. We've gotten some really good comments, and I'm actually really pumped because if I could take all of the people that are on this maybe we need to do this, Carter. Like, I'm going to throw this down right now. I'm going to throw this down as like a design challenge to everybody that's here today is let's do a session. Let's create some kind of a design session where we could mock up a use case for System C. Because when I look at those folks that are on here, we have the right people that could sit for 2 hours together and come up with something really interesting. And like, I've got EMR people, I've got tech people, I've got I've got clinicians, I have food as medicine, I have ag, I have CPGs. Like we literally have this entire cross section
There you go.
between who's on LinkedIn and who's on Substack right now that we could do that. So I'm going to make that offer to everybody. We're going to do some kind of an interesting design challenge for all of you, and we'll do like a live design session. I have no idea exactly what that's going to be, but I have an engineer by my side here who was trained by the founder of Six Sigma himself. So I think we're in good hands.
It must be true.
Yes. I already have somebody. We already have Eric who's saying I'm in. So,
I'm not sure this works, so people can try it. And don't tell anyone about it yet, but you can try it and then send us a note if you
live. Do you really want to say it out loud?
Yeah, go to Crusonia.io.
Oh, you are gonna put it out there like right now.
Crusonia, Crusino. Why can't I spell it?
Crusonia.io.
Crusonia.io.
Why you would think about spelling out loud live, I don't know. But that's okay, you tried.
And then when it gives you the login screen, it's going to have trouble with it. I haven't gotten that part worked on yet, but you can sign up for the wait list. You can ask for an invite. And then I'll figure out, it probably will be moving to a point that it can be used and buggy in a couple days, but go for it.
All right.
But don't tell other people about it yet.
You've just told like all these people, and this is going to be like published. So anyways, you'll be on the wait list at least.
Yeah, let's get, and then we'll figure out how to manage it. I haven't worked on that part. I've got other stuff in the back end getting put together.
But it just so everybody understands that is going to be it is a prototype of being able to help connect these dots and do some design work. But I'll leave it there.
The idea is we have CRMs to figure out who to sell to. That's great in a established system. But how do you figure out who to partner with for a supply chain that doesn't yet exist? And so we're trying to solve that problem.
It is ultimately, so Price asked, but what is it? In its finished form, it is ultimately designed to be a tool to assist with System C design by actually giving you the information and the, who are the companies that could do this, connecting the dots, connecting the assets.
And connecting you, it's a referral agent. So what you'll be able to do is, like, if you're a startup, you'll be able to say, this is my startup, this is what I'm thinking of, and it will help you a little bit plan through that. And then it will tell you, it's like, you're ready to start talking to other people about it. And then from the user side, hey, I need this kind of technology. I'm looking for technology that solves this problem. You can put that information in. And then what Hayek will do is it'll sort of say, you know what? You're asking for some stuff that any one of these 5 companies might be able to do.
Correct.
Is this what you're looking for? And it sort of helps you shape that idea with Hayek as a middleman. And then it says, you really should talk to this company or that company. And it does it. Its intent is that it will do this consistently so that your ideas can be half-baked, but you put it in the system, and then we'll be able to take the collective of the half-baked ideas, and then the newest thing I add to it is like a CIA analyst. So like CIA analysts, think about it. They're sitting there, like, what's going on out there? I'm seeing this signal and that signal. I'm seeing that. Oh, wait a second. There's this picture of stuff. So we're also going to create a capability that they'll be like, if people are like, can see and connect the dots. So if people are good connect the dots people, they'll be like a CIA analyst in this thing. And they'll be able to sort of say, you know what, I'm going to connect the dots. I'm not going to let AI do it. I'm going to do it myself. And so we're going to try to connect the dots in that kind of system. So yes,
Eric, it is in essence an open source. It's just that we're using proprietary insights.
Yeah, I've got all the insights because we've looked at 6,000 startups in the space. So I've got components of insights from that already.
Right. It's not sitting out there.
Over 10 years. And so the notion is anybody who's doing a startup in this area would load in, so they would go 6,000 to 50,000. and then people are looking for answers would come to it. But how the scrum occurs is a little unclear, and I don't know how to simplify it for people. But the main thing is, if you're trying to design a new system, there's no CRM for designing a new system. So if I'm Kroger and I'm like, you know what, I really need to get nutrient dense food, the only thing that Kroger knows how to do is go to a CPG or go to like a CPG to get that. They don't know how to talk to the farmer about it. And maybe they need to talk to the farmer about it. Because in the first instance, it's just one farmer, but then they realize that's how you change it, and then they figure out how to change the system.
So I'm not going to take the. I'm gonna call that an unintentional teaser towards Crusonia, because we could take the full last 15 minutes, or I don't know how long we're going to go. We don't have to finish in 15 minutes. Actually, we can stay on longer. We can
I can't code right now because I'm in my window. Like, I can code so much, and then if I use up too many tokens on my account, I've got to wait for a new reset period. So I've got an hour and 15
So we're allowed to keep your attention away from coding for a while.
I've got like an hour and 15 minutes before I hit my next reset point where I can.
There you go.
But during break, Claude had a lot of free access for like 5 days. So I really use that window a lot. I keep hitting these breakpoints, which is probably good because it.
Yeah.
Then I can go be social.
So Eric, I don't think that we're doing justice of what I hear you. I think that we've described. I think what you're just. I don't disagree with your point. I think how this tool has been described could easily be understood as something that marketing and salespeople can do. What we're really trying to do is put all the pieces in place in 2026 to bring all of the right players together to create System C. And in 2026, we want to have, this was one of my resolutions, is have at least 2 use cases in place by the end of 2026. And a use case would be defined. I haven't defined exactly how many, I haven't mapped out exactly which segments, but if you want to kind of take a linear approach of you're starting at soil and then you move, from soil, ingredient, CPG, or it's whole food. And then you've got distribution. So whether that be retail, direct, right, whatever. And then there's the health outcomes, the human outcomes, Carter, that you're talking about. And whether that be in the traditional, like connected in through the traditional healthcare system, or whether it be using something that I would call a DIY healthcare tool, or sort of a bypass, which is more like function health and superpower, right? Maybe like a crowd health as health insurance as opposed to, United.
Well, by the end of the year, so let's talk a little bit about what epic we're in. We're in the Tom Sawyer epic.
Well, right.
So 2026 is the Tom Sawyer epic. And at the end of this epic, we're going to have a bunch of people that understand the new architecture is catastrophic health insurance, buyers clubs for
chronic disease,
for chronic care, end of life, annuity insurance plan, and a bunch of other things. So our System C. We're going to have we're going to have a cohort of people that understand that. So right now we have a cohort of people that understand what System C means. That understands what System C sort of includes, but doesn't exactly know how to orchestrate it. The Tom Sawyer epic is the challenge, because we could individually try to do this alone, or we could try to figure out how to do it. And so a homework assignment for everybody is Chapter 2 of Tom Sawyer. You can get online because it's public source now. So Chapter 2 Tom Sawyer, read the thing about painting the fence. And the thing a lot of people miss is Tom went out there, he had to go paint the fence. He sort of felt like he had to do it alone. And he started painting, he didn't want to do it. And I can't remember Will or something, the slave boy came along and he tried to say, well, why don't you paint the fence and I'll go get the bucket of water that you're carrying. It's like, no, I'm not even going to do that. He did not want to, he was not, and it was sort of an interesting contrast. Like Tom could persuade nobody else to paint the fence, and then he had this blinding flash of the obvious, in which his perspective changed, and he figured out how to orchestrate a crowd of people around him to help him paint the fence to the point that they were all gleeful to do it. That is the epic. That is the epic we're in. That is, for me, at the macro, 2026 will be a success if we can figure out how to get agriculture, food, health care, wellness, and pharmaceuticals to see the ability to paint the fence together. And then we're entering it with the perspective of what we want in System C, which I think we've articulated a bit. But we've got to get at the end point where we're starting to operate at a system level of understanding how each one brings something to it, how we profit from it, how they profit from it, and that we can do this cooperatively rather than having to own the whole thing. So the Tom Sawyer epic.
I'm reading it right now. I'm trying to find the part.
Which part? See, there's a part where you wouldn't even get the bucket of water.
So I've got the bucket of water. So right now, I've got Ben Rogers, the very boy of all boys whose ridicule he had been dreading, that Tom had been dreading. Ben's gait was the hop, skip, and jump, proof enough that his heart was light and his anticipations high. So we can all imagine this. This is the health system that's like, oh, I don't need to do anything different. I just need to continue to build towers, right? The health system's getting ready to walk by. But you, Carter, you're sitting there painting the fence. So they're walking by and they're intrigued. Tom went on whitewashing and paid no attention to the steamboat because that guy was acting like a steamboat. He's like running around acting like a steamboat, and Tom just ignores him and continues to paint the fence. And he says to Tom, "Hiya, you're up a stump, ain't you?" No answer. Tom surveyed his last touch with the eye of an artist. Then he gave his brush another gentle sweep and surveyed the result as before. This is like you programming the last few days. When I called you, you were like, I'm programming. Ben ranged up alongside of him. Tim's mouth watered for the apple. Apparently had an apple, but he stuck to his work. And then Ben said, "Hello, old chap. You got to work, hey?" Tom wheeled suddenly and said, "Why, it's you, Ben. I weren't noticing." Didn't, act like you hadn't even seen him. "Say, I'm going in to swim. I am. Don't you wish you could come? But of course you'd rather work, wouldn't you? Of course you would." Tom contemplated the boy a bit and said, "What do you call work? Why, ain't that work?" Tom resumed his whitewashing, answered carelessly, "Well, maybe it is, and maybe it ain't. All I know is it suits Tom Sawyer." "Oh, come now. You don't mean to let you like it." The brush continued to move. "Like it? Well, I don't see why I ought to not like it. Does a boy get a chance to whitewash a fence every day?" So pause, anybody who on here is like, why are you reading Tom Sawyer to me when we're talking about predictions for healthcare? How many of you have been in this industry for 30 years who've been waiting to see it turned upside down, or you're in food, or you're in agriculture? So what we're saying here is that you're standing at the fence whitewashing it, and you can either see it as work and drudgery to change the industry, or you can see it as an invitation to do it as others, okay? I'm not going to keep doing this for too long, but I'm just going to make the point. Like it? Well, I don't see why I don't like it. Does a boy get a chance to whitewash a fence every day? That put the thing in a new light. Ben stopped nibbling his apple. Tom swept his brush daintily back and forth, stepped back to note the effect, added a touch here and there, criticized the effect again, Ben watching every move and getting more and more interested, more and more absorbed. Presently, he said, "Say, Tom, let me whitewash a little." Tom considered, was about to consent, but he altered his mind. No, I reckon I wouldn't hardly do, Ben. You see, Aunt Polly's awful particular about this fence. Right here on the street, but if it was the back fence, I wouldn't mind and she wouldn't. Yeah, she's awful particular about this fence. It's got to be done very careful. I reckon there ain't one boy in 1,000, maybe 2,000, that can do it the way it's got to be done. No, is that so? Oh, come. Let me try. Let me just try. Only just a little. I'd let you if you were me, Tom. Ben, I'd like to be honest, but Polly, well, Jim wanted to do it and she wouldn't let him. Sid wanted to do it and she wouldn't let Sid. Now, don't you see? I'm fixed. If you was to tackle this fence and anything was to happen to it, oh, shucks, I'll be careful. Let me try. Say, I'll give you the core of my apple. Well, here. No, Ben, now don't. I'm afraid I'll give you all of my apple. Tom gave up the brush with reluctance in his fence, but alacrity to his heart. And while the light steamer, Big Missouri, worked and sweated in the sun, the retired artist sat on a barrel in the shade, dangled his legs, munched his apples, planned his slaughter of more innocents. And it continued. Everybody came along and wanted to paint the fence. So we're all glad you're here. We'll be mailing paintbrushes. Joking aside,
that's the epic, or build epic.
Build
epic is about, and epic's a term in software development, but our build epic is 2026 is Tom.
I did not expect to read Tom Sawyer. I think I lost some LinkedIn people as a result of this. They're like, I did not come on here to hear chapter 2 of Tom Sawyer. So let's go back to predictions. All right, seriously, let's come back to predictions here. So and I'll go back to these comments. So there was a question about other countries. Are there other countries where this is working? I don't really want to go down the other country route. We've talked about that a lot. There was a good question, which is we need the right capital in the right place, or a point, which I think you were getting at, Carter, which when we talk about predictions, I think we should talk about that. And then, Eric said, but notice that he didn't include the lumber mill. Who would suffer if the paint was applied and the wood didn't rot? It's worse than that, Ellen. The health system doesn't want it to happen. I totally agree with you. I know the health system doesn't want it to happen. But let's go back. Let's go back to this idea of System C, and let's go back to predictions. So I think 2026 is going to be the year where there are some very significant disruptions in food. I think the food industry, we will see disruption in terms of we will see a continued real shift in healthy for you kinds of foods, a continued reduction. I think GLP-1s, I'm not arguing. I just want to be clear. I said something about GLP-1s after you did, Carter, about just what an impact they're going to have on the industry. I don't think that GLP-1s are the end all be all by any means. I understand there's a lot of question about long-term impact. The reality is that
there could be a transition. I've always considered them to be a.
They are an impetus. They are going to make at the lower price points that they are coming in at, and the uptick and the latent demand that people have to be able to lose weight and feel healthier, and they have no other alternative. They're going to run to GLP-1s, and I don't think we are going to have. I don't think this is a prediction. I suppose I don't think that clinically we are going to see enough of an adverse reaction that we're going to see a retrenchment before real impact in health outcomes happen. We have already heard from health system CEOs that they have seen some minimal but noticeable inpatient reductions from people who have moved from being, an A1C of 13 down to an A1C of 7. And now all of a sudden their diabetes under control and they're not ending up being admitted into the hospital every month. We are seeing that already. When that's at a price point of $1,000 a month, we're talking about $200 a month. That is going to have real trickle impacts. I think who's going to feel it first is food in 2026. I don't think healthcare is going to feel it until maybe fourth quarter of 2026, but certainly in 2027.
But it's going to be a real thing. I mean, the impact of GLP-1s is Lilly realizes they can sell direct. Lilly realizes that people are willing to take products that involve poking a needle in them. I mean, these are kind of changes that will affect the Lilly pipeline. It will cause some confusion because the other thing we got to remember is you can now buy the next generation of Zepbound on the gray market as a peptide for $25 a week.
Exactly.
So it's not even through FDA approval yet. but people are comfortable enough to go ahead and risk taking it because it's functionally equivalent to whatever Lilly's coming out. So if it's got whatever, so you if people are willing to biohack mainline and gray market, if they're willing to take meth, I don't know why they wouldn't be willing to. Sort of odd. Take a gray market
You
peptide.
love that way.
But so their business models are going to hit an irreversible point.
Correct.
And somebody like Lilly is going to be sitting there where pharma has been rent seeking to get favors out of healthcare. If you recall, ACA almost didn't make it because they couldn't get the pharmaceutical companies on board. So the coalition, they made a whole bunch of concessions to pharma on ACA. Well, if all of a sudden pharma starts realizing they can go it alone in some particular way, and Lilly starts looking more like Tesla, from a standpoint of Tesla does cars, it does solar panels, it does batteries, it like all of a sudden, it's a tortured analogy here, but all of a sudden you start realizing, wait a second, I can explain market value in a different way. And like if I'm the Lilly CEO and I'm saying we're going to come out with this new drug that does weight reduction, all of a sudden the market says you're losing 30% of your sales to gray market peptides. They're going to have to come up with an Elon Musk answer to that, not I'm pharma, we're going to regulate, and it's not going to be on insurance. And they're going to have to come up. It's like when the music industry had to deal with MP3s. They're going to have to come up with a new business model for dealing with that. And when they do that new business model, it will forever put us into a new lane.
Correct.
And I think that kind of pressure point is going to show up in boardrooms. Boardrooms are going to be, at the end of the year, boardrooms are going to be like, I either get it and we're moving in that direction, or I reject it and I force my feet are against the door holding it back. And that's like this classical Clayton Christensen kind of disruption where it'll just be an unbelievable game at that point. It'll just be total game on.
Okay, so predictions. I'm a very much a framework kind of person, so my brain needs to show progression here, but I'm gonna just try and let that piece of my brain go. I do want to share some of the comments that have come in. So 100% business models changing. So big agreement with that point that you're making, Carter. I agree with this. Christo made the point of microdosing direct to consumer GLP-1s. Totally agree. Whether we like it or not, we are seeing a lot of, there is a tremendous amount of healthcare untapped and consumer need from inflammation at large and conditions that I always call it the in-between, which is you've got chronic inflammation, it builds up, you start getting a number of different signals and problems, and sort of like your dashboard starts lighting up, right? All of a sudden you find yourself in sort of these like, the PCOS bucket, the IBS bucket. There's like all different sort of systemic meltdowns that happen. And then it just goes from there, right? And then you end up in that cardiometabolic nightmare, and now you're type 2 diabetes. Like it just goes on and on, right? All these things sort of stack. I think that GLP-1s have proven, especially that microdosing and the lower dosing, they have actually proven to be very effective for a lot of folks that fall into that sort of in-between bucket, where they've never been able to find something that has helped them. Now, they have not tried a very strict food protocol necessarily, right? Like that I would say. Maybe they've tried keto, but GLP-1s. And so I agree with you, Christo, that microdosing GLP-1s, not just in general, but to go after that whole entire segment of people. Another question came in, which was, and I think this is a good question, and this takes me to my point about I find myself jumping into healthcare, and yes, feeling like I don't belong there, but still very much there because I spent 30 years in it and know it very well. and then sort of stepping out. If I go kind of in and I say, look, this is the current state, which is we have agriculture, we have food, and we have healthcare, and they don't really talk to each other, right? If I stay in that, then the question is, what is the impact of Amazon on healthcare, low-cost drug options like Mark Cuban? And I think, what does that do from a disruption perspective? Again, I feel like all that does is promulgate that current system B, and it isn't going to disrupt it the way that you and I believe the system needs to be disrupted. Another comment was, and I'll let you weigh in on that one, but another one was, Blockbuster circa 1999. I think taxis, I think electric car. I mean, all the different market. I mean, Carter and I repeatedly say System C is about market creation, much like what we're talking about. And then the question of who's the new Netflix. Anyways, it's the disintermediation of healthcare, and it is. I think it's going to be a lot of innovators. I'll add one more piece to this, which is we talked about. I was saying kind of the fatal blows to healthcare. I think there's also a tremendous tailwind coming to the disruptors. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I think there are a number of tailwinds coming in. So access, the CMS access model is in essence unlocking the way, and I've read the RFA in detail, it is in essence unlocking the entire Medicare fee-for-service market on the Part B side to an entire set of new entrants that have never had direct-to-consumer access to the Medicare market. And so
Neil and gang know what the hell they're doing, and are that inner crowd over there seems to, people may not like what they're doing, but they're not naive. You agree with that?
You're talking about Abe and that crowd?
Yeah, the core team over at CMS understands what's wrong and has a perspective on what's wrong that others may disagree with, but they're not amateurs.
Oh, no, I totally agree with you. I think they have made they have sent a very clear message to healthcare. I just don't think healthcare is hearing it, which I find fascinating. So in my opinion, when I look at all the programs that have come out, they have sent the message of, and in this question about PBMs, there's a thread right now in our chat that is around PBMs. PBMs need to go. Cubans destroying PBMs. I mean, Trump's made it clear that, he wants to see them gone. And I think that's one of those fatal blows is how deep will policy be able to go in what private industry could take care of? We don't need the federal government to take care of that, but it's a tailwind to do so. I think access is another example of unlocking, like the more tailwinds that come in to support these pushes from private industry, the better.
Yeah, and we're dealing with a multi-trillion-dollar industry, so it's going to evolve in some different directions. I think the discussions between those entities will be, we have fewer people aging into chronic disease, and the sickest of acute patients are seeing a dramatic reduction in chronic disease comorbidities. So let me restate that. So we got fewer people getting diabetes, so we're not bringing in new people into the Death Star. So what's going on there? And they're going to be stumbling around trying to figure that one out. Like, we just have fewer patients. And then for the 1% who use 25% of healthcare costs, that do also at times have acute disease, when they have something going on, there'll be less complexing issues with their chronic disease. So I'm going in for a heart bypass and I've got diabetes. That's a 30% more cost expensive case to manage than I'm now A1C 5 and going in with cardiac bypass. So that cost structure is going to affect things, and really at that point the hospitals are going to be like, it's like they were just expecting this flow to get there. because because society was feeding them the wrong stuff, so that was their customer acquisition strategy. They have no customer acquisition strategy once society stops feeding people less diabetes. And I think that that combination of conversation is going to be front and center and staring healthcare in the face, and they're not quite sure. Then we're going to see some cool stuff because it'll be more Cubans. We're going to see. I don't know where it's going to emerge, but we're going to see some things emerge at that point. They'll be like, I didn't see that coming, but that's a good idea. So we got to stay vigilant and pay attention to the signals.
I agree.
What are people saying on the line? What do you got there?
So there's a lot of comments. Amazon is still focused on selling to employers. Cuban is about destroying PBMs. PBMs need to go. What's needed? And I don't necessarily agree with this. And unfortunately, I think Eric had to jump, so he's not going to hear me say this. But what's needed? Clinicians, all types, licenses, plus PTs, plus therapeutics. So this is where I feel really strongly when we talk about System C is that we really do have to break apart chronic disease from acute care from prevention. And I'm talking primary prevention, maybe a little bit of secondary prevention. Healthcare isn't capable of delivering primary prevention because food and lifestyle, but particularly the food component of that, is such a massive component to primary prevention, and healthcare doesn't have it, nor should healthcare in the sense that we define it today or health insurance pay for it. So I'm a big fan
of...
It's
like making a... Sorry, I can't come up with a word analogy. It's like making a carburetor engineer design an electronic fuel injection. I just can't do it.
Correct. So we do truly need to rethink about what health insurance should cover, what insurance means, what healthcare means. It really is redefining those terms in a sustainable model. So like if people look up Crusonia, it's Crusonia economics. It's a self-sustaining economy. And healthcare, the way it's designed, is not a self-sustaining economy, nor is food. But human outcomes could become one if it was designed to optimize, which is the point that you've made. Okay, so Eric stayed. He said that we've got him trapped. So I'm going to push back then, Eric, since you're still here, on the comment about what do I see as part of the system. I don't disagree at all with what you defined of clinicians, PTs, therapeutics. That to me, though, is very much the acute care of healthcare. And I really, having a history and a background of underwriting and actuarial and product development at a health insurer way back when, I understand now. And I really pushed on Carter for a long time on this because I didn't want to believe it. But we can't cover that. I'm going to say something that people will hate me for. If we want insurance to be sustainable, we can't cover chronic disease. We can't cover over the long haul. We can't cover diet-related chronic disease the way that we cover it today. What we need to cover is reversal programs of that, which I do believe in that situation, you do need a clinician there. Okay. So like that to me is, I've got type 2 diabetes. I would have a capped benefit, for example, right? $50,000 or $100,000 for that. And then I'm done for. So at the end of the day, and then the other piece to this is really important. And Carter alluded to this is, and I think this is the secret sauce, is you need some kind of end of life annuity, and on traditional health insurance, an end of life cap, meaning, and this is horrible. And it's ethically very difficult to have a conversation about, but right now you go into the hospital, you're facing an end of life event. You will be given whatever life-saving measure is needed, even if you're going to die in 2 weeks versus 2 days or versus 2 hours. And I'm not going to get into which condition I'm talking about or anything like that. Point being, if you are a type 2 diabetic and you've been running your A1C has been 13 for a year, and you keep coming back into the hospital with septic shock, and they keep putting you in the ICU, and then you keep getting better over and over again, that's the kind of thing that there needs to be a cap to, so that, but now I think what people need to understand is when I say that, there would have been an annuity that you would have gotten, I don't know, let's say when you're born.
You would know that I think the annuity concept here is everybody knows a certain part of that problem is covered. And if you know that some of those end of lives are covered now, you may have some moral hazard there. But I think it's easier to have a discussion with the people around you decades ahead of time or years ahead of time around what end of life looks like.
Correct.
And in a sense that in my experience, when people go through this phase of their life, they do think they know what's happening. We all know about it. We all prepare for it at some level. And if you sort of know there's a certain amount, it's just like getting your will in order. You're taking a certain amount of accountability for that, and you know that you've got the resources to deal with that accountability, and so
if you knew, right, bottom line, and then I'll get off of this, is that we truly have built an incentive that it is less expensive to get chronic disease and have it treated than it is to avoid chronic disease. And what you and I are saying is we need to redesign this system in a manner where it's hard to make a bad decision at the grocery store. Nutrition becomes affordable. Nutrient density becomes the norm. The throughput then turns into human outcomes. You have the way to measure those human outcomes. You have a way to own your health, right? Your insurance is structured in a manner where you have acute care, true catastrophic, and then you can buy supplemental to pay the rest. So you want to have chronic disease, no problem. You can pay for the supplemental policy that's going to cover that chronic disease. But there is a financial incentive that you don't have to pay for an insurance policy that's going to cover that chronic disease, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, again, I'm glad I put ramblings in the title of this, because I keep trying
to. Do we have anything else that people want to cover?
There's a lot of conversation about other countries. I don't think people want to cover it. Just sort of conversation around other countries are covering this. So the comment is that I just described Canada, Australia, UK, France, Germany, etc., their structure. And I don't disagree. I mean, but I'm not a proponent. I just want to say, like, I'm not somebody that's going to sit here and say we need to have a single payer system.
So to that point, my attitude is I think that there are some important other things in other systems that I have a lot of respect for. Like,
yes,
in Italy, families take care of people a lot more than we do, so you don't have to have nurses, kind of thing. I mean, it's a trivial one. I did learn though that in Canada, it's illegal to have a medium rare meat, so they're dealing with it in other ways. But the issue of chronic disease is not present in those environments because they're doing something different. It's not present in those environments because it hasn't been exported to them yet, and it's on its way. It's already showing up in India. It's already showing up, and you can get robots that deliver you Kentucky Fried Chicken in China. So part of what we're seeing is a delay. The other part that, in as much as those systems have some very particular interesting things, they also are free riders on U.S. innovation. So NIH spends more than anybody else. There are questions about the effectiveness of this, but we spend a huge amount. There's a huge amount of opportunity in terms of hero acute care. There's lots about the U.S. system that has been leading the world, and when it is reduced to practice, it spills over. The next generation HIV drugs developed here, Africa, nearly for free. So the spillover effect out of our grace in various ways ends up in those places. I think that we should be paying attention to what's successful elsewhere, but we should also, when we're talking about center of the plate acute care, that the U.S. system needs to consider how it continues to lead from an innovation standpoint, and recognize that, like, us adopting their care delivery system does not necessarily improve care. It may actually cut back on what they rely on from a spillover basis. And the other thing is all of them have more chronic disease hitting them because we don't have to exercise as much, we don't have to work as much, we don't. All those things add to the reason why we're overweight and have obesity, and so we need to lead. U.S. system needs to make a decision whether it wants to continue to lead or not, and it has led a lot.
Well, I think they'll continue to lead because we're going to continue to double down on acute care, and that's where other countries don't spend the resources, is on that high end acute care. So, I mean, we will continue to lead on that respect. I think the issue is going to be who's going to fund that, and so okay. So Chris,
and we have new jobs. I'm sorry, we have longevity. So there's a new thing. Like, once you open up prevention,
absolutely,
then we're going to be talking about how we reduce the cost of prevention.
Absolutely,
and that's going to open up. It could be that in the old days, the doctor spent their time meeting individual patients. In the new days, they're central command of developing a scaled solution.
Correct. Well, I think, yes.
Serving 4,000 patients.
I agree with you. I would say it is a new market. You could call it a new economy. I don't necessarily need to call it a new economy, because I feel like it is our economy. It is a reshuffling of the current resources and assets, but knocking some out, bringing some in, and creating a new market. So, and a new market definition, right? We have food today, we have health today, we have wellness, we have longevity, we have all of those things today, but they are siloed, and they have an investment thesis that's based on revenue, which monetizes the wrong thing. It's the perpetuation of things that will only continue to perpetuate cost. And what we're saying is those buckets need to be brought together under a human outcome bucket, which is what we call System C. And the Crusonia concept of, a self-sustaining economy there, it has to go back to human outcomes. But I'm getting really high up in the clouds. I want to kind of come back down for a minute.
Yeah, we got to wrap this up.
We got to wrap it up. Let's try and wrap it up by the bottom of the hour. Christo made a really good he posed a question that I think is a great way for us to try and do this, which was food is health month by month. That was his question. Roadmap month by month for 2026.
Oh my God.
I don't hate that. I mean, I don't necessarily need to do month by month. I think his point is, like, tell us, okay, let's do quarter by quarter. So I'm going to start with first quarter. And from a food is health, let's start at a market disruption level. We're going to see GLP-1 continue to disrupt. I think we're going to see more action on the food side. We're going to hear more about food sales being disrupted from GLP-1s. We're going to see on the healthcare side, we're going to see who jumps in for access. And that's in first quarter. We're going to see all the access applicants. We're going to see the Elevate applicants. And the reason I'm bringing this up under food is health is because those programs are enormous tailwinds for System C. They are static and annoying for System B. So System B is largely, I've talked to a lot of clients, and they're largely overlooking these new models. But the entire latent demand and market disruptors that have been sitting out there lost in the shuffle and not able to, you talked to Carter about, you invested, the customer signal wasn't necessarily there when ag tech, the same with health tech. And now all of a sudden we've unlocked with access the entire Medicare fee for service market, which is millions of people, right? For these innovative startups. So that to me is going to be first quarter. I also think that the rural transformation program is going to be a big opportunity for food is medicine on the infrastructure side. So I've read some of the early summaries. I haven't been able to dive in due to my head cold, but my understanding is that there's quite a bit of energy and traction around what you and I talked about this when the RFPs were out, which is at least try and get some money in there for the infrastructure to deliver food at a health level, right? Because we don't have the infrastructure to do that. And it sounds like some of those dollars were designated. And I think we will also see in first quarter some interesting state pilots and state announcements around food related interventions for healthcare due to those rural transformation programs.
Yeah, I think there was a lot. I've read through some of those results, and there was a strong.
Yes.
Now we do have another. I mean, it is back to Minnesota. There was the food pantry program, which I've heard of problems about it before. Is there's just I'm saying a better perspective on why we've heard some people in the Congress frustrated about 1115 waivers. It seems like there was what is being reported, but I can't validate, is there were dramatic amount of in Minnesota, dramatic amount of people put on food programs in which no food was ever even delivered.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have this tension back and forth of, these are important programs to run, but they're also programs that attract fraud.
Correct. Correct.
And so I think it's
a big opportunity, but it's a big area of vulnerability.
Those are important tensions to pay attention to.
Well, the same holds with access. The tech bros they are just salivating over access. So it's like, sweet, we finally get the money. And it's going to be very much, there was a comment that Eric made about direct to consumer. And I think the reality is access creates a direct to consumer for the Medicare market. So that's first quarter. Okay. I think first quarter bleeds a bit into second quarter. And on a very granular level of the Food is Health Substack, we are going to launch Crusonia, which is not just the app that Carter was talking about. We will have the fund. So there will be a fund around that from an investment perspective. It's a continuation, but it will be very focused on this. There will also be an opportunity for a convening. I don't like to use the word consulting. There will be consulting, but it's really meant to be a syndicate of folks that want to architect these use cases. So those that want to roll up their sleeves and have the ability, they can bring to the table an organization, I guess an area of expertise.
Well, it's like a friction at it, creating these new business models.
Correct. So we will have an architect layer. We will have, and that will be an invitation only. We will then have what we will call the collective, which is this larger group where we will convene, where we'll have these types of war games, where we'll have events. And they will be core to being part of these use cases. And then there will also be just there'll be a layer of just basic education around it. But the idea is by first quarter, we have started Crusonia formally, and that by fourth quarter, to Carter's point, we will have use cases in place, and everybody that's part of Crusonia is very clear on what System C really means and what it is that we were trying to accomplish. And it will be cross-sector. So we will have ag, we will have food, we will have healthcare. And wellness, longevity, and all of the different subsets that fall into those three massive silos will be combined into this Crusonia. People will be Crusonians, correct? So that's at a granular level. So second quarter.
Can I put another plug in? I do need some
but
help.
Then we have to
I know
going.
that you're
we have to do
get
second, third quarter, fourth quarter.
Oh, get figured
Kristo's got to go too. We're losing people, but that's okay. Keep going.
I do. We are going into market with a fund focused on strategics, have some commitments already, but the idea is there are several strategics from agriculture, food ingredients processors, CPGs, grocery, healthcare, where we want to focus our early stage investing on the things that accelerate their markets. So if there's strategics out there, corporations that are want to make sure they have the right tools to remove the friction in the marketplace and get closer to customers. That's what the function of the fund is. About $100 million fund that we're starting to put together and have our early commitments on that. And we'll be trying to finish that funding, getting it in place and up and running through Q1. But we've got to bring talent and money to this equation. So part of our job is to educate the capital markets on what this looks like, and then the other part is to get the Tom Sawyer and tribe in the room to work across the value chain, which is a harder thing to do. Those are,
which is the Crusonia syndicate.
Yeah, which is what we're trying to do. So if other people have ideas on that or can lead in that in some particular way or something, that's.
But it is it is bringing all of the constituents to the table, and we've got, people always point to A16Z and. In healthcare, there's the Leadership Institute, but the reality is that those are still very siloed approaches. I mean, we started in this conversation talking about analysts that are still very focused on, you're lucky to have them at an industry level. Typically, they're in a niche within the industry. And our entire focus, I think, now is that we both can't unsee the fact that it can't be that way anymore. We have to bring everybody to the table collectively. And we have to work on this design challenge using first principle together. All right. Second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. So we've hit on first quarter. Do we think second quarter we see more market disruption as a result of some of the policy?
You're forcing me into a world here that
doesn't work with your brain.
What's happening tomorrow, and you want me to plot out the quarters. I'm not there yet.
All right, fine. All right. Sorry, Christo. We at least got through first quarter. All right. Any other predictions as we shut this down, Carter? Any other predictions or resolutions? What's a resolution? What is one of your resolutions?
To get more people painting the fence.
Okay.
What's that?
All right.
Talk to more people, understand, get this fund raised.
And get the syndicate in place and get members. And also tell us how we can help.
20 pounds.
Like we want to understand what's more what's most valuable. What can we produce that's the most helpful for people? Is it us being at events? Is it us running events? Is it us doing these types of things? Is it us, what is helpful? What is not as helpful? We have limited resources. We want to channel them into what's most useful for this group.
Yep.
So, okay. All right. Well, as usual, it went the way it went. We do need to have a session with Katie.
Let's do this every Friday maybe and try to keep it to an hour for people.
Okay. Could do that.
Sounds good.
All right. I'll talk to you soon, Carter.